All right, folks. Thank you for hanging out for another Friday Night Live. The cold has come back. It has probably come back for good. As you see, it's hoodie time, and we're fixing to find out how long into the season, the cold season, I will be doing the show out here versus commandeering a corner of the living room. So we'll see. It's about 40 degrees. It's not too bad, but man, that wind really picked up a couple of days ago. Brought that cold front in. We even had it was spitting snow last night on my way home from class. Um, Very windy. That was preceded by a couple of days of rain and overcast. So, the usual bizarre, unpredictable fall weather around here. We still got a lot of color on the trees. A lot of them are still hanging on to their leaves. I've not had as many leaf pickups as I usually have by this time of year, but they'll come down when they come down, and I'll go out there and fetch them for folks. Got to make that compost. Got to build that soil. Got to tap into that waste stream. So we did. It sort of warmed up, and the sun was out today, so that was nice. Um, the Thank you, Pippin, for the clear audio heads up. I went on an audio roller coaster the other day doing my segment for TSP. We might talk about that in a minute. We might talk about how much I hate not programming, just working with technology, working with computers. But yeah, that wind kicked up, brought in that cold front. We were talking like 25, 30 mile an hour gusts. So I was not prepared for that. It was kind of off my radar. I had so many jobs scheduled this week that I had cardboard flying all over the place, trash cans tipped over, the whole bit. So got all that straightened up, kind of did a little bit of generalized cleanup and spiffy work around here just before the sun was going down, and headed on in here to talk to you guys. So we got Pippin Eyes checking in. Thank you, Pippin. Picking up car parts, putting them back down. That's like when I work out. I pick up a heavy bar, and then I put the bar back down again. And keeps you strong. Tim dropped in early because I failed to put in the correct time, and I had it put in for 2:35 p.m. So he planted trees today. So we'll see if we hear from him tonight. Hopefully he had a successful tree planting day. That is probably my favorite thing to do this time of year. Once we do get the trees that are dormant that need to be transplanted, or the ones that we've ordered, or even better, the cheap and or free ones from the dumpsters and from the markdowns at the nurseries. Get those trees in the ground. Chile, Arkansas, Hippocrates Garden. Shed and library. Insulated well enough for a little buddy heater. That's good. I probably need to pick one of those up. Our shed is not insulated, and boy do we notice it once we get cold. But and honestly, I don't know how in the world I would do it at this point. I don't know if I could. It would be a tremendous pain in the butt. But we've got one of these little oil space heaters that, on the low setting, it pulls 600 watts. So it's not necessarily something I want to run, especially once the sun's down. But generally what I'll do is if I'm going to be out here in the shop, whether I'm at my desk or if I'm in the gym, I'll turn on the main generator, and just because there's a good chance that the batteries need to be topped up a little bit anyhow. And I'll run that, and then I'll run the heater while the generator's running. So we'll kind of do both of those things at once. So we're not being, wasteful with battery or ultra wasteful with gasoline. So we are kind of enjoying that time of year with the solar system where the daylight is short, but our consumption is way, way down. So we tend to stay, we still tend to end the day, a sunny day, at nearly full batteries. So that's nice. And, when we get into February and March, it'll be the opposite. It'll be mostly overcast, be looking like, Seattle out here. So, Pippin got down to the 60s. Well, I hope you put your hoodie up, because that's just terrible. That's just too bad. And everybody in Minnesota is laughing at us right now. So let me see. Let me see what I got to catch you guys up on. We've got our open house on for December 1st. We've had a few RSVPs, but not too many, and it's because I realized it's like the weekend after Thanksgiving, the way it all fell down here. So we might just have a handful of people, and that's fine too. Um, so we'll do a property walk, Q&A, refreshments, warm drinks, and hopefully a campfire. A campfire if the wind's not bonkers. Um, so that's Sunday, December 1st, noon to 4 p.m. And if you're catching this replay and you're in the Knoxville area and you would like to visit a homestead that endeavors to follow the principles of permaculture and regenerative design, then give me a holler, strongrootsresources at gmail.com, and I'll send you the directions of how to find us. The only other thing I kind of have coming up in the immediate future, I was invited to present a 1 hour kind of intro to foraging for a literacy class. One of my a lady who's been out here for one of my in-person foraging classes emailed me a couple months back and asked if I was interested in doing that. So I've thrown together some slides and some notes, and I'll be talking to some. I think they're 17-year-olds. Some are here in the U.S. Some are, I think she said a couple others are in the Caribbean. So I'm going to kind of bring my East Tennessee, urban, rural, fringe foraging skill set to bear for them to learn a little bit about, and then we'll have some discussion and some Q&A. Let's see here. We've got... So last weekend, I wrapped up the show, excited about the Wallapini. I now have a hole in the ground. We got that far. Tyler dug it out. We went for, let me back up for a second. In case people don't know, if you're catching this after or whatever, you haven't caught one of my rambles before. A Wallapini is a term for basically an underground or earth-sheltered greenhouse. And you dig down or you dig into a hill. There's a few different ways of going about it. You put a clear roof on it that serves as your solar capture. You get your orientation where you're going to get full sun throughout, and you grow in it. So we've got it dug into the hill. It is approximately 12 wide and 22 long. The deepest part at the highest part of the hill is 4 feet deep, and we tapered it down to where you can just walk into it. And we opted for that because if Angel wants to use this thing, that is way easier for her to kind of come in off that collapsed swale berm and just walk straight in and not go down all these steps. I wasn't personally thrilled about the idea of steps either, because there's going to be a good chance I'm like toting things in and out of there. That's not super practical. Because we did it that way, that means that the next step is to take the fill that came out and mound it up and get more height. Because as it is, it would be, in this case, if I framed it out and covered it now, it would only be like 20% earth sheltered. So we need to build up around it. And that's one of those things we'll get to it when we get to it. I'm glad to get the process started. And a lot of that kind of depends on when Tyler has time. Although he did tell me, he said, I'll train you on the Bobcat some more and you can do this. And I'm just moving dirt. So I know I don't normally say dirt. I like to say soil, but this is dirt. This that came out of this particular spot is 99% red clay and rocks. Most of them, nothing bigger than the size of my head for the most part. So Hippocrates has an incredibly important question here. Wants to know, a Wallapini isn't a drink with an umbrella drank while wearing a grass skirt. I don't know how you spend your weekend. You do you. But I think you're thinking of something else. Not a martini. That's like a James Bond thing. Guys, I don't know. I've been out of the alcohol scene so long, I've kind of lost track of the terminology, but it does kind of sound like something that you would have at a tiki bar down in the Keys, right? So the term Wallapini means warm place, and I apologize for forgetting the origin of the word. I do believe it is from a country in Africa, but I am not certain of which one or even which, um, which group of people down there, because there's just so many, so many cultures there. So uh, we'll just call it the Earth Shelter Greenhouse, or I'll come up with a name for it because I'm not going to say that every single time. So I'm happy about that. Ultimately, we will block the walls. Tyler has wall block left over. He's going to dig that out. And I'm hoping that can be one of those things where I can. So here's the cool thing, because I'm going to put my old wood stove in there. So I'll complete my thought here. So, wall block in the wintertime, not a ton of fun. Cold, annoying, probably wet. But I could go ahead and at least maybe partially roof it. I'm kind of thinking about working through this if the weather's less than ideal. If the block's already in there and I can roof it, or even just tarp it enough to stay dry, it's something I can do even if the weather's not great. But I'm also going to take I've been hanging on to my little it's a miniature wood stove. It's like a tent wood stove. I'm trying to remember. I think I ordered it from Bass Pro Shops. I cannot remember the exact name that they gave for it, but it's like a boxwood style. Takes logs that are like, actually you can get 16-inch logs. I'm saying it's long, which is nice. And that has been DC'd from its original use and stored in the high tunnel, and I have all my piping and everything. So yeah, ultimately we will be making sure we can pipe through that, and I will have a heat source. So I'm pretty excited about that. Plus, we'll have all that wall block in there. I may even block around the stove to give it more thermal mass, but that's definitely going to be an element. And that's one of those things where I've been sitting on this little wood stove, got it up, made sure it was out of the weather so it wouldn't rust and everything. So it's just steel. And I was like, I thought about biochar, and I was like, well, I need to make a shelter for it because I don't want this thing just sitting out the weather. So I've thought about biochar. I've thought about all these different things. Even just having it, because it's not heavy at all. Like I can literally just pick it up and carry it outside. It weighs like 60 pounds. If we wanted to have a warm fire outside, but maybe it was too windy to do it in a fire pit, we could use the little stove. So that's why I've held on to it. But now I know where it's going to go. And this is a theme for me, is to be sitting on something and know it has a good purpose and know I want to use it, but know that I haven't quite landed on what that's going to be. So I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about what this Wallapini could look like. Right now I'm on the hunt for roofing. So I need like the clear corrugated roofing. I had a friend offer me some old windows, but windows at that angle, we get too many hailstorms in the spring, and I think it would just get trashed. So I want this, this clear kind of tough tech style, and I'm kind of holding out for a decent price. Everything I'm coming up against is like $20 for a 6-foot long sheet, and I've got a total between the wood shed, which I also want to put clear roof on. It's like over 500 square feet that I need. So I've been watching Marketplace, and I've kind of put the word out. Like I will take leftovers. I don't care if they're somewhat oddly sized. I'll overlap them, but man, that's just not a price I want to eat, especially this close to kind of my slow season. So if you guys happen to see anything, let me know. It's one of those things where I would still come out better even if I had to drive a couple hours to go get it, depending on how much they're asking. So looking for that, looking for some clear roof. So speaking of the woodshed, I got the rest of my rafters up and spaced. I ended up going with 14 long. So that gives me about 1.5 feet of overlap in the front, about 1.5 feet in the back, which is nice because I'm probably not going to be able to wall it in for a while. So a little more roof overlap, keep things inside drier. And the reason I want to roof that clear is because it's kind of a prominent feature in our front yard. And I do not want to I don't want to make it real dark. Like if I put a metal roof on there, it's going to be dark, especially once I end up walling it in if I decide to do that. And it's on the uphill side of my pollinator garden, so I plus clear roof. I kind of feel like wood's going to season better. We've kind of played with this a little bit with the other high tunnel on the property when Tyler and his friend get together and split a bunch of firewood. They throw it all. I mean, it's already seasoned, it's dried, but it's been out in the weather, so it's not necessarily moisture content is not low enough, and they'll throw it in that high tunnel, which is just it's open on the ends. It's just got the plastic over the arches. That wood dries out super quick. I mean, you can walk in there and tell a 10-degree difference, and it's angled that it does get a good bit of sun. It gets the first several hours of sun, so I kind of like the idea for that reason. Plus, I want to. There's a few other things I want to dry where filtered sunlight coming in isn't a problem. Plus, if I need to, I can always throw my shade tarp on it. I've got 2 different kinds, and I can always add that if I need to filter it a little bit. I do it on my greenhouse right now. If I'm doing stuff in the summertime in there, I keep the door open and I throw that shade cloth on, and things don't dry out super fast. Hippocrates says there's a permaculture teacher up in Canada that works with Rob and Michelle Avis, sometimes that deal with frequent hail. And they use something that looks kind of like a shade cloth for protection. And he has dropped a link in here. Thank you for that. AgriFabric. And thank you for the numbers, the model number and all that good stuff. I will make sure to note that down before I close out the window tonight. Thank you for that. I started to look at, and now I'm talking about the woodshed. I started to look at a really heavy duty tarp from Harbor Freight, like the super, like almost like billboard thick tarp, because they have one that's in that size and it's like $70. And I thought, well, I could use that, and I may still do this, kind of depends, but I could use that to get me through the winter time. And then when I've got like the money saved or the materials on hand to actually roof it, pull it off. And there's dozens of things I could use a heavy duty tarp, solarizing, just all kinds of stuff. You really can't go wrong with one of those. So thank you. I will look that up. I'm going to go ahead and throw it down right now in the notebook if you guys don't care, because brain won't remember. AgriFabric. Hey, I wonder. Talk about trying to use the dang internet. Nope, I don't want to do that. I don't want to ban. I was going to. It won't let me copy it. Well, there we go. Number 320073331 model. I bet they could probably just find this off the SKU, but we'll write it all down. Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, still looking for, creative solutions, reusable things of that nature. Because I've got enough wood undercover right now for, certainly through December, and plenty more around to be cut, like, nearby zone 2 type areas that just needs to be cut and split nice and seasoned. But I kind of have to wait until I deplete my initial supply to refill it again, because I just kind of use basically a narrow pallet to stack it up. I'm not even really sure. It's not even like what they call a rick. It is probably 10 long, 4 high, 1 log deep, and my logs are usually no longer than 12 inches with the little wood stove. So nice, good thinking on that. I haven't really caught you guys up on the gardens in a while, but I've got a whole bunch of brassica type stuff planted that came out of the dumpster, and a lot of it really took off since we've been warm. We had rain, warm, a little more rain. It was great, and so that is. I am hoping that is going to be an extra form of rabbit food. It's not stuff that I actually eat a whole lot of. I like having plant activity going on in the garden and it not be kind of fully fallow, even if it's mulched in. So these are the kind of things where I can come in and I can cut some off, and the rabbits have fresh food when the usual other forages are pretty sparse. Uh, so that garden looks good. Finished mulching the paths. Got some more straw down. Got some pine straw. Excuse me, on the strawberries, and have also been kind of continuing to tune up the food forest. I found the last passion fruit. I had a great passion fruit season. Almost all of it just came up. I mean, I had scattered seed, but it wasn't like I had planned this plant right here, and it was really good. So a lot of times people will tell you that passion fruit, it needs to be wrinkly before it's ripe. And I've been telling people this for a while, but it turns out I need to adjust that assumption because I found one today that was still, I would say it was spongy. It wasn't firm, it wasn't hard, but it was kind of spongy. And I was like, well, let's open it up. And it was ready. It was ready. It hadn't turned colors, probably because of the weather change. It was just cooler and all. But so yeah, double check your passion fruit. They might be ready when you thought that they weren't. While I was digging around in the garden, and this was mostly due to pulling some weeds and gathering, grasses and greens and things for the rabbits. I remembered that I had planted sweet potatoes under two of the mulberry trees. I had taken one average organic sweet potato tuber and buried it under the tree and then under the adjacent tree. And good to have you, Tim. Let us know how your tree planting went. I don't know why I had the stinking thing set up for 235. I just can't use the drop down box apparently. But I looked at the greens. I've been feeding the greens. I'll eat them a little bit, but that was one of the things, like, I plant as much for the other animals on the property as I do for myself and the rest of the family. So I just kept feeding them greens, and the greens were pretty much, we had kind of a frost last night, so they were looking kind of beat down. I was like, oh, I should see if I have any potatoes under here. So, and the answer was, yeah. The answer was, from 2 potatoes, I was about 3/4 of a 5-gallon bucket full. Probably, I don't know, 20 pounds, 25 pounds. It was heavy. And big old tubers, not little babies or anything, but big old honking tubers. So I brushed the dirt off those, put them in sawdust, put them in the shop. I don't really cure them. Some people say that you have to. I don't. They seem to keep fine, and frankly, we go through them fast enough. So a lot of people say to cure them so they keep better. But I mean, I would eat sweet potatoes almost every day. So these aren't going to be sitting around too long. And now that we're cooler, but I packed them down in some sawdust. And yeah, they were great. So I was like, holy cat. So next year, I'm just going to do the same thing. I mean, I'm trying to remember. No, I did not. Those were not started from slips. I had these 2 potatoes that I kept meaning to get into water to start slips. Before I knew it, I waited way too long for that to work. I was like, well, screw it. I'm just going to go bury these potatoes and see what happens. And they were hugely prolific. And the original potato, so all the vines that came off that started making other tubers, that original potato was still intact. I mean, it was a little bit bug eaten and a little bit kind of desiccated looking, but that potato was still there, was still identifiable. So that was just probably the easiest food I've ever grown, literally. So it kind of makes me think, man, if you got like a wood chip pile sitting around that is starting to break down pretty good, you dig down a little bit, and you're not going to be in that pile for a while, tuck some tubers. And I think I did this in like June. Like I said, I waited way too long. So that was a pleasant surprise. I had 4 or 5 little baby tubers, and I've got them in water right now. So we're going to start our slips early because I have a couple of ideas. And they take a long time to grow. At least in my place, they take a long time to grow. So the house is starting to look like a little bit of a jungle because I went on a digging spree yesterday before the weather really turned because I had super prolific basil plants, 2 of those, 2 really good pepper plants that I want to try to overwinter that we're still flowering and still fruiting. And then I have my potted ginger plant outside, so it came in. So there's stuff in the loft, there's stuff behind the wood stove, there's stuff behind the front door, which it's just kind of everywhere. And then I put together 4 quart jars, mason jars for these potatoes. Um, and that's kind of this is like my mom told me that this used to be like a thing, like a poor man's house plant was to put a sweet potato in a vessel of water and let it vine and then like drape your vine around your curtain rod or whatever the case may be, because it was like practically a free plant. So, and you can, like I said, those greens are edible and they're good. So I'll have another form of greens coming in. I'm not sure how I'm going to train a sweet potato vine. I guess I'll have to update you guys on that. Let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah, my Practical Shepherd book came in. The book I was talking about last week came in the mail yesterday. Got it opened up last night. Fell asleep before I could get it read. So I'm probably going to be looking at that tonight when I stretch out. I'm really looking forward to somebody who does sheep the way I'm trying to do it, because everything I've found so far hasn't been super relevant to the way I want to run these animals. Speaking of the sheep, tomorrow they're going to go in their probably next to last actual grazing spot for the season. So I've got I'd say it's probably about an acre that I fenced in that I'm going to put them in for just 2 or 3 days. We've had a pretty good return of fescue and a few other grasses, some clovers. So I'm going to let them hit that real lightly because I don't want to stunt springtime growth. And then I've got a similar situation a short distance down the driveway. And then after that, it's going to be sheep wrangling time. Hopefully by then, Tyler and I will have the paddock together, the hard paddock together, and we will be sorting sheep, and we will be putting 2 rams into the trailer. I hope. I really, really hope. This is one of these things that I really want to get checked off my list. We've just kept having so many, kind of more important things that got pushed ahead, and just jobs. I've been fortunate with as many jobs as I've had. New installation work and things of that nature that I was going to get after it while the getting was good. So, but sheep are doing well. I took a look at Big Mama sheep today. She's the big brown one, and she is big. She is big, and you can see the hollows in front of her hips, which is a sign that that they may be giving birth soon. Every sheep's a little bit different, but I'm kind of wondering because she was the first one to lamb last year. She lambed during that snowstorm. So was that not the end of December, early January, somewhere around in there? So we're not too far off. She might have gotten bred, a little early because we just keep everybody together. We don't take the ram out, so it happens when it happens. Let me see. I wanted to go over a discussion that kind of popped up in the Telegram group today. We're talking about dealing with calorie pear. So this is the offshoot of the pear that when they developed the Bradford pear, they said it was sterile. Turns out it's not. And when the seeds get on the loose, it grows the calorie. This is Callery, and this is the big spiny mofo. That's what we're talking about here. Big, nasty thorns practically from the moment it comes above ground. I mean, it thorns up immediately. They grow incredibly fast. They have really dense root systems. They root sucker like crazy. And Scott in Kansas is dealing with it. Jed Froggy's dealing with it. Um, and we were just kind of talking about mitigation strategies. So I sent a picture of one that Tyler dug out when we decided to do this Wallapini. There was a sprout that kept popping up, and this was one where it just kept getting mowed or grazed, just maybe a foot above ground, diameter of a pencil. When Tyler got the claw in there with that excavator and yanked that thing out, it had a root system like longer than my arm span, and the root flare that was underground was that big. So we've got pencil size sprout above ground, root flare that big. I really hate these things. This is probably the only thing. As much as I get aggravated with blackberry, I hate calorie pear more. Tyler was able to go around the property that same weekend with the excavator, and he pulled out a bunch. He dug out a whole bunch in a couple of areas that were relatively accessible. But I've still got this lower portion of our acreage that needs to be addressed. There's probably about 4 acres of it. And it's not something where I don't want to really, a forestry mulcher is not going to fix this problem. It won't get out the roots. If I immediately put animals on it, that will help, but I really want this root system gone. So it could be a matter of, we kind of were batting around options. Some people do use poison. I'm not quite ready to take that step. And it wouldn't be like a broadacre spray, but it would be a like a hack and squirt or a stump treatment, something like that. Yeah, Hippocrates has a very good point here. Yeah, nature finds a way, right? Or life finds a way. Is that the quote in Jurassic Park? All the velociraptors were supposed to be female, but then nature happened. Yeah. These trees. So this is like, let's turn the problem into the solution, right? So when I get these trees down or uprooted or whatever the case may be, at the size they're at right now, like the ones that need to come down are, anywhere from maybe 8 inches to a foot diameter trunk. That's about as big as those trees get. These trees will eventually die, get pushed over, come down in a storm, and something. But the problem is, as long as the root system is intact, this can perpetuate if we don't interfere. This is not one of those times where nature will necessarily. I mean, that would eventually be deciduous forest because there are trees coming in that area that I do plan to keep, but this wouldn't be fixed in my lifetime, and I want that fixed well before then. So, we will have tons of firewood once these trees are down, and most of them will not need to be even really split, or maybe just split one time. So that's plus. I will have the ability to, we can build brush piles. We can, there's hugelkultur. There's all kinds of use for this stuff as long as they can't root again. So we'll make sure they can't do that. One option that came up in the chat was to just cut them and then take just allow the animals in and let them keep pressure on it. And I do wonder, I don't think I brought this up in the chat, but I do wonder if, people do this with kudzu and goats all the time, where they return them at certain intervals and it eventually exhausts. They return the animals to the site to graze this stuff, and it eventually exhausts the root system. And I wonder if that's possible with these trees. I don't know. I'm not super duper optimistic about that. But the thing is because these trees throw really dense shade. So when I go down there from time to time, and this is not a super accessible spot in the land, there is no understory. There is nothing going on in the understory. It is just, soil and what's left of the leaf fall. There's every now and again like a little fern will pop up or whatever, but there is just so much shade from these trees, and it's in most places in a certain area, it's almost a monoculture. I mean, the root system is just that freaking bonkers. So I don't know if the root system can be exhausted in that way. But we may find out. The problem is though, is like once you start cutting this stuff, like they are so dense, they are so close together. Like I have to squeeze between them, literally squeeze between these trees if I get down in there. One falls in. I cut one falls into another, and then I'm playing grab ass with this super thorny velociraptor of a tree. Thank you, Hippocrates. They have a new name. Um, and so, do I get a buddy up here with a chipper and we're just immediately just chipping those trees? If I can find a workable edge, that's kind of part of the problem. We'd have to open up an edge to actually work from, to like go in, cut a tree, pull it out, repeat until it's been dealt with. I haven't made a ton of progress on that because it's just, it's the zone 5. It's not critical. And I have enough other problem trees closer to zones 2 and 3 that need to be dealt with first. But this could be one of those things where, let's say we get a nice warm day in December, and I feel like running a chainsaw. Maybe we do it. It's got to be dry though. Like I said, there's sections of this that are fairly steep. So, we don't want to uproot, then we lose soil. So you guys can see, like, this is this is a constant kind of putting to work the ethics and the principles of the very design science that I try to make a huge part of my life. I actually make my whole life, and this is one of those times where it's a little easy to get a little bit of analysis paralysis. So perhaps I just cut first and figure out the next step later, because at least I'm opening up the canopy and I'm giving other things a chance to access the sunlight and access nutrient. Maybe I'll look more into how forestry mulching really works. This could be something that this is a good idea. Because it leaves all that biomass on the soil. That's kind of a big purpose of that. And I do have a neighbor and a friend who can refer me to somebody. So if Tyler doesn't want to do it. So there's that. That's my never-ending thing that I go to sleep thinking about how I want to handle this problem. Mostly just because with the rate that the sheep flock is growing, by summer I'm either going to need more space or reduce my numbers of sheep, one or the other. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's see what else I got for you guys here. I think it's going to be a short show tonight because frankly I'm a little bit cold and a little bit tired. But I do think I want to read something. I want to read something that grabbed my attention a few days ago. As you guys know, I picked up the designer's manual, and I'm a book flipper when it comes to nonfiction. I rarely go linear, but I did sit down with page 1, chapter 1, and something that Bill wrote in here I feel like could be super relevant to the current social, economical, political climate. So I'm just going to throw it out there and let you guys share your thoughts. So Bill says, what we have done, we can undo. There is no longer time to waste, nor any need to accumulate more evidence of disasters. The time for action is here. I deeply believe that people are the only critical resource needed by people. We ourselves, if we organize our talents, are sufficient to each other. What is more, we will either survive together or none of us will survive. To fight between ourselves is as stupid and wasteful as it is to fight during times of natural disasters when everyone's cooperation is vital. A person of courage today is a person of peace. The courage we need is to refuse authority and to accept only personally responsible decisions. Like war, growth at any cost is an outmoded and discredited concept. It is our lives which are being laid to waste. What is worse, it is our children's world which is being destroyed. It is therefore our only possible decision to withhold all support for destructive systems and to cease to invest our lives in our own annihilation. So that's a little heavy. And I mean, I can't disagree. I certainly don't disagree with any of that. Um, we're a couple weeks past the election now, and I'm watching again, like I do, watching from all sides and all angles, because I kind of like to keep tabs, um, not in an obsessive way, but I like to try to keep a bit of a feel of the social mood and the community climate. Because in a lot of ways, I'm very insulated from a lot of stuff. I am very particular about who I spend my time with. When I get out and I do things and events, I am surrounded by people who we pretty much see eye to eye on most major things. And when we don't, if we have differences of opinion, nearly everybody I've encountered in these spaces, we either live and let live, or we have conducive conversations. That's been my experience. So, uh, with that said, that passage I just read from Bill, like I said, that's the very first page in Permaculture Designer's Manual by Bill Mollison. That is followed by the Prime Directive of Permaculture, and I have to admit that this is one of those things where I knew this, but I never really directly contemplated it when I was kind of operating in design mode. I mean, it was present. I might not need to back this up as much as I'm trying. Um, Perhaps it was something that was instinctual, so it wasn't in the forefront of my mind. I think that's what I'm trying to go for here. So the prime directive of permaculture: the only ethical decision is to take responsibility for our own existence and that of our children. Make it now. So, I mean, Bill had a big stinking point there. And uh, several years ago, when I stopped messing around with my life, and this was even before I started the business, this really came about. I kind of had my own personal awakening when I turned 35. So that would have been 2017, somewhere around in there, where I suddenly didn't like myself very much. And it was a very liberating position. It sounds like I didn't like myself. I didn't like the direction my life was going in, which didn't seem like any particular direction at all, to be honest. So when I was 35, I realized I was about 30 pounds overweight, which does not look good on a 5'6" frame. My energy was shit. My alcohol consumption was way beyond what it ought to have been, and I wasn't fit, wasn't very strong. I had thought that because I had addressed a couple of things, a few years before that I was like, oh, I'm good to go. I fixed this and I fixed this. Now I'm good to go. No, that's not that's not how it works. But in that moment, I was reminded that it was the position I was in was 100% my fault due to my choices, which meant I had 100% control to change it. And I get to remind myself of that every single day. Because I do have a little bit of a tendency to, I have to watch out for being a little bit of a funk and getting into ruts and that sort of thing. But it really is true that once you accept that radical personal responsibility, and I'm sure you guys know there's a lot of people that need to do this right now on all sides of the social, economic, and political aisle. Let me be fair. I think if they could embrace that, they would be completely different, possibly peaceful, happy folks. So, when I go in and I make like a design decision around here on the farm, and it doesn't work as well as I hoped, that's accepting feedback, right? It's one of the principles. I'm like, okay, that didn't work. It's kind of like the meme, but did you die? Okay, if I didn't like harm anybody, harm an animal, or cost myself or somebody else a ton of money, I'm like, which fortunately I've not really ever had that happen. Then I'm like, okay, this is just a matter of figuring out what the issue is and making adjustments. So that's a heck of a thing to really embrace. And I just find it, I find it encouraging that we have the option to do that. We all do. We all have that option. So let me see what Hippocrates has to offer here. It links to a conversation from last night. Someone brought up perhaps part of the reason we have lost generational perspective is that the generations rarely live together anymore. Thus, every life is solo. Yeah, I think that was one of the areas where we really went wrong. When people were convinced to move far away from where they grew up, to build a house that only accommodates the adults and the offspring. But I am hopeful. Like I'm seeing this cyclically as well. So I am seeing lots of my peers building like a mother and father-in-law, tiny home or cabin or something like on their land or whatever the case may be. They're figuring stuff out. But that's really true. If you just, this is coming from somebody who likes to insulate himself. That is me. I like to insulate myself from all kinds of stuff that is unpleasant. That's one of the big reasons I left EMS was because I was tired. This is going to sound really harsh. I was tired of dealing with other people's shit because it seemed like my entire day was dedicated to dealing with people who had made poor decisions. I mean, yes, sometimes things happen. Accidents happen. Picking somebody up for the 10th time because they refuse to, take appropriate action to manage their medical problem. And then, how they say shit rolls downhill. That's often what that job felt like. Like we were just catching it all, with patient families, facility, supervisors, fellow coworkers, on and on and on. And so we work really hard. I make very deliberate decisions now to insulate myself from having to be in that kind of place. But because I am able to do that, I also want to make sure I am not completely out of touch with the wider mood that's out there. So, that is just a thought to share with you guys. Just a preponderance of mine. So much wisdom from Bill and David Holmgren and all those writers and the ones that are, speaking of generations, the fresh generations that are picking up this stuff. Like I get to talk to a bunch of 17-year-olds about foraging, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of permaculture in there too, because, let's go ahead and get everybody indoctrinated the right way. I hesitate to say we have a duty because I don't ever want to assign. Hey, I hate to tell people what to do. You guys know that. But let's just say I personally feel like I have a duty to keep this information coming to people, to provide some hope and some optimism and some solutions and things of that nature. Like that's what I want to continue to put forth. That's what I want to surround myself with. Hippocrates says, I don't want this. I don't need this. I don't deserve this abuse. I was a high school classmate in the early 1980s. Yeah. When you're in public school, the indoctrination is so heavy, and man, I don't even want to know what it's like now. And that's not to dig on teachers that are trying to do a good job, but in general, the way the system is set up, do these kids know that they have options, that they are in charge of their lives? Do these young adults know that? That's probably why I want, the unschooling and the homeschooling and the church schooling and those movements are, again, picking up pace, because I think we've got people ultimately they strive to find some kind of balance. And we're meant for more, you guys. We're meant for more than just a wage job and Netflix. So not to try to get all in high and mighty on you guys. Me and Angel are going to go watch Westworld here in a little bit. We might talk about that sometime. that's out there. That is a wild show. But Hippocrates says that that classmate is now a physician. Good for her. I hope she is she's had success and she's happy with the direction she's gone in. So yeah, guys, I think I'm gonna go take my butt in the house where we got the wood stove going. Yeah, Pip and I's, it is a good and weird show. I think we've only watched the first 2 episodes, so we're just getting started on. But I love that kind of stuff. I love Gnostic kind of work. I like that whole concept of what is reality, what is consciousness, the ethical questions that surround it. So I might end up talking about it. We'll see. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Hope you have good weather and get stuff done that you want to get done. And we'll talk to you next time.